Hello again. Here we are to continue our discussion of CSS. And in this video, I'd like to talk about making cards, okay? So, I have a folder here that I've created. And for this example, I want you to actually add this to your CSS framework, but I'm going to do the example outside. And I just have a separate HTML document here and then two images. So I got this cat in a paper tube and the kitten chased by the domos, right? So let me go into my HTML document here and kind of fill it in. So this is just a basic HTML page, just like you might have anywhere else. And again, I want to add this to our CSS framework that we've been doing in the last few videos, right? So, so anyway, there's my markup. And what is a card? Well, a card is a container that has some content, right? We talked a little bit about this in a previous video, but let's actually make one now. And we want to set this up in a way that's kind of generic and can be used anywhere and then easily customizable by someone else, right? So what I'm going to do here is start with a div. Okay, so I got my div here, and let's actually add a style sheet. So you could put these styles in your framework. I'm just going to put it up here in the style tag for this example, and that way we can see the styles side by side with the markup. So if anybody was going to use this, what they would start with is any kind of container with a class, and they'll use the class name card. So they'll activate the card by assigning the container the class name card, right? So I'd say dot card up here and put my styles here. And typically a card has some kind of outline to define it or delineate it and separate it from the background, right? So let's do that. Let's say border style is solid, right? So I'll give it a solid border, and then I'm going to give it a border width, right? So I'll give it 1 pixel, right? And it doesn't show as anything here because our card actually doesn't have any content yet, okay? So let's add that in next. So maybe this card will have an image. Like typically a card will have a picture or something at the top, right? So let's put the image tag here, right? And then I'm going to get this kitten number 2 or this image number 2 right there. Let me see here. What am I missing there? I got class card. I got the card here. I feel like that should work. Maybe I got to put. Oh, you know what? I actually didn't. This is actually the blank page. I have to start it over again. Let me do that one more time. Yeah, there we go. So there's my cat, right? So now you see the border here, and it goes all the way across the page. So typically a div expands to fill the space available to it, right? And the image doesn't do that, okay? So the image is an inline tag, and it's just the size, the actual size of the picture, right? So, to make, typically if I make a card, I want the images to fill out the top of the page. Let's actually take a quick look at Bootstrap. So I'm going to look at Bootstrap and go to their docs and see what we're trying to emulate. So I'm going to search for card, and I'll click on card. And this is a card here. We can see it's got like a little bit of a light gray outline, and then it has an image that fills out the space here, right? Sometimes you'd have a card without an image, so it could just have a heading. Often a card will have an image followed by a heading and a paragraph and some other content, right? Because we really put any content inside a card. But I want the image to fill out the top space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that, anytime a card has an image, right? So let's say card space image. So anytime there's an image in a card, that image is going to have a width of 100%. Okay, so there we go, right? Now, you might say, whoa, that cat's pretty big, a little too big. Like I typically don't want, to show my cats that large on my websites. Too much cat, right? So that's okay. We should let the card determine how big the image is. Okay, so in our case, when you set the width of the card, then the image will always be that width, right? And if we put the card in, say, a grid, then it'll be as wide as the grid cell, right? Or if we use flex, then we put 3 elements in a row, or if we use some other way to set the width, then the card will just be as big as the space available, right? So typically that's a good way for us to work with the card. We might want to also maybe give some margin around the card. So maybe I'll do margin of 1 rem, right? And people can override that if they want to change it. And so here my card has a little comfortable space around the outside, right? So let's try an example here just to show the idea of how the card is going to, how to set the width of it, right? But the container is going to control that. So this is our card here. What if I was to create another div here, and imagine this div is our container. So I would say class, container, right? And, I might put the card inside the container. Okay, so I got the card in here. And maybe, I'll put it at the top of the page. Maybe I'll do it up here. We'll do dot container. And then I'm going to say container is going to be display flex. So maybe I have a flex box, and I want to put a row of cards. Okay. So now when flex controls the elements, those elements are typically just the size of the content, right? And if you have 2 of them, they'll kind of squish together to fill the space. So let's imagine I have 2 cards here. There's my second card, right? And if I needed to set the width on these cards, I could actually just give them a width, right? Now, I wouldn't style this because that'll be in the framework, but someone might write another style that they apply, right? So let's call this like cat card, and then imagine like the styles up here are, framework styles, right? And then maybe the styles up here are, user styles. So someone has imported my framework and they get all of these styles with the framework, and then they add a couple styles of their own to kind of make things look the way that they want to look, right? Or, the way that they want to customize the look, right? So maybe dot, cat, dot cat card right here has a width of, I don't know, 200 or something, right? So this box right here is 200 wide, right? And maybe, I could set a width on the second one too if I wanted, right? So that's kind of how we're going to use this, right? So we're going to use like the styles that are important to us are these styles, right? I've got card, I've given a border style of some kind, I've given it a border width, and so these 2 are the border style, and then I've given a little bit of margin maybe so it spaces around from things around it, and then I've also said that anytime there's an image in there, the image should fill the card, right? Should expand to fill the width. Okay. What else is going to happen with our card? Well, typically someone is going to have some kind of heading in here. It could be an H3, could be an H1, could be H2, hello cat, right? So I got an H3 in there. Maybe this one's going to say, let's do this. Let's do food cat, right? And then maybe there's also a paragraph of text like, cat tube, right? And then this one could be something else. I'll just put cat tube down here again, right? So now I have a paragraph there. So this like looks okay, but we kind of have a problem. Like if the font, the font aside, right? Because our framework right now should style the text here, right? So we should get a better looking font, right? The problem with the text here is it goes right up against the edge of the card, Okay, so it goes right up against the edge of the card. That doesn't look good. It's okay if the picture goes up against the edge of the card, but if the text goes up against the edge of the card, it's not looking very good. Okay, so let's talk about a few things that we can do. So one, if we wanted the card to have a style like, like a Polaroid, maybe that's part of our framework, right? So we might have a thick kind of white border around the outside. So if we do that, then we don't have a problem. So I'm going to go to my card styles here, and I can say padding of 1 rem. Okay. So if I do that, I have kind of a Polaroid kind of style here, and the card is pushed in. Okay. And that's okay. Now this aligns with the edge of the card, and it looks amazing, right? Like that looks a lot better than this, right? Okay. And if you don't think it looks better, change your thinking, because this looks better. Okay, trust me. Okay, believe me. Look at that and then ask yourself why it looks better. It looks 10,000 times better, right? But maybe like I don't want to have this Polaroid style. So this might be a style. Like you might want to have that style, and that's okay. And so that would look pretty good. But maybe you don't want that. Like I actually like this. I like it, but I also like this, right? This is pretty good, right? And Bootstrap uses this. Materialize uses this kind of layout too, right? So if we want to do this, somehow we have to push this stuff inward a little bit, right? Like this stuff has to come in to about here, you know what I mean? But the card needs to go to the edges. So there's a couple ways you can do that, right? One way would be to think of all of the things that could go inside your card, right? And this is a little awkward, right? You could say h3 dot card space paragraph, and then keep going, right? Because it might be, dot card h2, right? Paragraph, or comma dot card dot space h1. You could keep going on this, and then you could say margin of left of 1 rem. Right, so that pushed everybody over. And then I should probably have margin on the right too. So let's do that. Let's say margin on the right of 1 rem. Okay, and so this is kind of okay, right? There's nothing wrong with this. I like this idea. It's a little awkward here with the selectors, and we also have to think of all the possibilities, right? So that works. Maybe there's some things to recommend it. I'm going to suggest an alternative idea. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the padding on the card. Okay, so I'm going to say padding of 1 rem. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. So that fixes all of these things, but the image is broken. But in this case, I like it. I like this method easier because we only have to deal with the image. So the goal now is to make the image fill this space and overlap the padding, okay? So to do that, what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna close this thing up and make a little space here. So what I'm gonna do here is this. I'm gonna set the width of the image. So I have image.width right here. I'm gonna actually make it, I'm going to use this calc function. So calc lets you do math in CSS, and calc is actually amazing because calc lets you mix units. So you can say, hey, the width of the cat should be, or the width of the image should be 100% the width of the container. But what I want to do is I want to say plus 2 rem, because here I'm going to have padding of 1 rem on the left and the right. So that's 2 rems. So I'm going to say 100% plus 2 rems. And what's magical about this is that it's mixing units. So it's 100%, but I'm also mixing the percent with the rem, right? And you can do plus pixels or plus centimeters or millimeters or whatever, any unit. So you could say pixels plus centimeters or pixels plus ems, right? So anyway, when I do calc here, it's going to calculate the width of the image to 100% plus 2 rems. So now you can see the image is falling outside the box. And so that's okay, but like if I grab the image and move it, what we need to do is move it up and over into this corner like that. Okay? So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say position relative, okay? So that means after everything is laid out, let's grab the cat and move it a little bit, right? So I'm going to move it left of -1 rem, and then everybody moves over a little bit, and then I'm going to do right of -1, or no, wait, top, sorry, top, there we go. Top of -1 rem, okay? So that's pretty good. It leaves me with an extra rem of space here, like right below the cat image, because it's that rem at the top. So what I think I'm gonna do here is when I did padding on all the sides like this, let's actually do padding on the top of 0 on the top right of 1 rem, bottom of 1 rem, and left of 1 rem, okay? And then I'll remove the top here, right? So now my cat kind of comes down a little bit, right? And so that's pretty good. There's a couple ways that we can also maneuver this, right? So if we took the padding or the margin off the top of the H of the heading, right, then that would also bring that up. So I'll leave it up to you how you want to handle that, but that's kind of an easy formula for us, right, to get this look, right? And so this will work with anything. Now let's try this one with a different cat picture. So I've got the image, this guy number 2 right here. Let's do kitten domo, right? So this one gets a little wider and it kind of squishes things because of flex, right? So and the domo picture is a lot larger. But again, if we set the size of the card, then the domo picture is going to fit that, right? Because it's always going to be 100% plus two rems, right? Okay. So so anyway, so we don't have to worry that these cards are vastly, different sizes at this point, right? Okay. But that's looking pretty good, right? So let's think, what else can we do here? So my card looks okay. You should put some styles on it though. So I did like the bare minimum style, like I just did a border of 1 pixel solid, right? You could do more with this. So like, what if we set the border color, right? So you could do border color, and the Bootstrap one uses kind of a light gray. Let's do 999, right? So that's kind of a lightish gray. So it's maybe looking kind of like the Bootstrap one, right? So I'm going to leave this up to you to kind of work with this, right? And what I want you to do is come up with a card style and add it to your framework. Okay, so that's my challenge, right? And you can do a lot of things with this, right? So like let's do another one. Like maybe I like this, but maybe the border, I want to do a little more with the border. So here's an idea. I'm going to do box shadow, right? So box shadow adds a shadow around something, right? So it takes a few parameters. So and they have a couple, extra properties here, right, that you need to set. So you can set box shadow. The first value is the offset of the shadow on the horizontal axis. The second number is the offset on the vertical axis. The third one is the spread of the shadow. I'll put 6 in here. And then the fourth parameter is the color. So I know it's hard to remember all those. Look it up, right? But offset X, Y, spread, and color. So let's do the color here. I'll do black as the color, right? So there's my black drop shadow, right? And if you want, you could make the drop shadow like, like a transparent color, right? So that's kind of a very subtle shadow there, right? Let me undo that and go back to black right there so we can see it. What if I want to make the shadow super fuzzy? I'll make it 16 pixels. So now you can see it fuzzes out for a pretty good range there. And, again, it could be like any color. So I could do like red, so I got a red shadow. Don't do the red shadow unless it really works with your theme, okay? So, but anyway, so we've got that. Let's talk about the offset here for a minute. So this is, first number is the offset on the X. So if I make the offset on the X, I say like 10 pixels, right? Then the shadow gets moved over 10 pixels to the right, okay? The second number is the vertical offset. What if I do 10 pixels on the vertical offset? So now you can see I'm over 10 to the right, down 10 towards the bottom, right? So that's a pretty heavy shadow. And the shadow kind of makes the card like pop off the page. So maybe that's like a nice effect, right? Maybe the color here is too strong, so we adjust the transparency of it, right? You know, maybe these distances are too great too, so we do like 5 instead of 10, right? So that's kind of a little more subtle. You could also make this M so that these two numbers scale with the size of your font, you know, so we could do, you know, how about 0.5 rems. So that should be pretty close to what we have, but a little bit more, right? Because our default font size is 16 pixels, so this 0.5 rem should be about 8 pixels, right? So that's a little bit greater. You could do a quarter of a thing, so that'd be like 4 pixels, right? 0.25. You know, and then if we change the font size, it would get larger, or it would scale with the font size, right? So anyway, so there's some card ideas for you, right? So play around with those, you know, and then come up with your own idea. What if we did just, while we're here, what if we went back to the Polaroid style, right? That might look good with a little bit of a shadow behind it, right? So consider that, right? And then you come up with your own idea, explore the internet, right? I had a link earlier when we were talking about cards with the Zen Garden page where I pointed out some card styles, right? And a website that had a bunch of different card styles on it. So you can also search your favorite websites and kind of borrow the ideas that you see there, okay? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope these ideas get your cards going on your framework, okay?